Dennis Dodd, CBS Sports, with us on 365 Sports. Dennis, of course, everything college athletics and football, and Craig Smoak, Paul Catalina, David Smoak. Dennis, thank you very much. The president's tomorrow, the commissioners on Wednesday. And is it, wait a minute, there were reports that they were done or at least imminent. What happened, in your opinion, with the college football playoff proposal?
Well, the contract is not done. We saw that from, I'm talking about the new TV contract. It was reportedly worth $1.3 billion. It's not even close to being done. And I've got some thoughts on that, but they're going to start to discuss that on Wednesday, the commissioners. And then tomorrow is really going to be interesting with Washington State and Oregon State still holding that vote, trying to use that as the same way Thor uses a hammer to get the best deal they can get going forward. It's really got nothing to do with 5+7 versus 6+6. I think they're holding out, and Kirk Schultz, the Washington State president, says much. They're holding out for Power 5 status. So what does that look like in 2026? I don't think a merger with the Mountain West is going to get them there. But if they start to go out and get a best of the rest conference, or their hope is the ACC breaks up with Florida State now seemingly having to being able to buy their way out of the ACC, that Stanford and Cal come back. It's so layered and it's so dense. It's hard to talk about.
Dennis, I do want your thoughts on the college football playoff contract not being done yet. It did seem strange to me that there was all this talk of getting other partners involved. And given how not only, Fox has doubled down on their college football coverage, CBS went big for the Big Ten, NBC and Peacock is now involved in this, that they wouldn't have multiple buyers in the market or multiple networks to do this, and that would be a solely ESPN and Disney deal. That was a little bizarre to me to hear that news and how it happened seemingly so quickly, especially since it didn't.
Yeah, there's a lot to that, too, because basically you had ESPN with a right of first refusal, and they could have matched any other deal that was out there. And I think they wanted, whether they leaked that to certain people, it was inaccurate about the deal being done, to pressure the CFP into getting the deal done. I don't know that, but it is not done. I know there's a faction within the commissioners and the leagues. I know Greg Sankey has stated publicly he would prefer multiple bidders. But I think as a whole, I think they're kind of disappointed with the number that came back, $1.3 billion. When this process started, we were talking about anywhere from 1.5 to 2 billion. And what the market has told them is that, number one, I think the rights holders are kind of running out of money. This is a big, big property. ESPN is saving up for, I think, to renew the NBA and NASCAR. So this is a lot of money that they're trying to save money on. At the same time, we're all transitioning to streaming, and nobody knows what that's going to look like. And let me get back to the heart of the matter in that I think it's coming to being evident with these people that the first round games aren't worth that much. I mean, when you get a possibility, as we would have last year, I think the Liberty, Georgia first round game, and you know what that is? That's a mid-September non-conference game at Sanford Stadium. And so I have one industry insider tell me that this started out at like $100 million for 4 games, those first round games, what they're worth. He said we might pay $5 million for some of these. And that's really what's going on. To my knowledge, those first round games were 24 and 25, those 4 games that start this year, December 19th. I don't think they've been sold yet. So we don't even have that. So how can you discuss revenue distributions? How can you discuss a lot of this stuff when you don't even have that figured out yet?
I always like to look at what Bob Thompson says on these TV deals, and his immediate response was, "That sure does seem to be low," and you're exactly right. Is it too late then for them to go, "Damn, we need to cut this back to 8," or they're going to 12? There's no question about it, right?
No, they're going to 12. Now look, I think everything's on the table in 26 after this current contract runs out. And I mean everything from structure to access to everything. Again, great thank yous on the board is saying, we'll do the 12 best. Why wouldn't you? When, you're going to have half the field from the Big Ten and half from the SEC. In fact, we had numbers that we researched in the 10 years of the CFP. If you took the current alignment going forward, the average number of combined teams in the 12-team playoff would have been 7.6 on average in the Big Ten and SEC. So that gives you an idea. It would have been 9 last year. So that gives you an idea of what they're going after.
Dennis, you mentioned Florida State earlier and their plot to leave the ACC. The ACC had a very interesting little nugget in their latest legal filing in that apparently Florida State can just buy their way out of the deal, which if that was the case, they could have saved themselves a lot of trouble and consternation and just maybe sent an email to them and said, hey, here's the number. Let's start working. I'm wondering why that came out right now.
Great reporting by Matt Baker of the Tampa Times. That's basically why. And who's to say they aren't way down the road in negotiating it? Now, look, their number, Florida State's number in their legal filing in the lawsuit is $572 million total to buy out. I don't think Florida State or anybody has $572 million laying around to buy out of a conference. So it would have to be a very, very complicated negotiation. And then not only that, then that gives the likes of North Carolina, Clemson, Miami, maybe Virginia a roadmap as to how they get out. And then there's the situation of who wants them and how soon and what they can earn. But you already see the wheels turning here, Smokey, about there being some sort of separation. When the SEC and Big Ten a couple of weeks ago came out with that advisory group, I don't know if you saw what I wrote, but I said it's very thinly veiled. It's like, if you don't like what we propose, we can have our own playoff. And that's true. Greg Sankey has said that again. If everything else fails, the SEC alone could have its own playoff, and it would earn untold millions of dollars. So that was a velvet hammer telling everybody else, including Charlie Baker, get out of the way. Here's what we're going to try to do. And I'm not saying the NCAA is going away. I'm just saying guys like Sankey and now Petiti at the Big Ten, who's had a few months on the job, are sick of, for example, the NCAA Board of Governors, that 9-person body, having anybody from the group of 5 on it. You know what I'm talking about? Mm-hmm. This is the group that runs the NCAA. Well, this whole discussion we're having is about those 68 schools, and within that, the 34 in the SEC and the Big Ten. So it's going to be interesting.
I've seen quotes from Petiti and Sankey, but they also said they did not want to so much. I don't know if the word was disrupt the ecosystem. Do you believe them?
I think they said what they had to say. Like I said, I think it was a velvet hammer. Yeah. We're going to form an advisory group. Why did that advisory group not include the ACC and Big 12? I think they've answered that. I thought I read that they've answered that. Like, well, we thought we could be more streamlined and just, if it is a Power 4 at all, that answers the question. That ends the argument. It's a Super 2 at the top.
All right, so you're talking about tomorrow they meet the presidents, Wednesday the commissioners. And they start playing football at the end of August, I believe, with Florida State and whoever else in Dublin. Mm-hmm. How in the world did they get to this point? Was it because everything became shrapnel from the conference realignment and the Pac-12 is down to 2?
That's part of it. I think they're just settling into that. There's nobody knows what that other conference, that Pac-2, is going to look like. Don't forget that we didn't settle on 12 for 24 until September. Do you remember that when Mark Keenum, the president of Mississippi State, had to intervene because of infighting in the league? And if you want to, it sounds old, but if you want to talk about lack of leadership, that's what it is. I mean, everybody's out for their own, for what they can get. You see that from the right seat, from all these conferences, from the stakeholders in TV. And now the players are more than empowered. We're going to see collective bargaining. So that has to be figured out. I'm sure in some point their accountants or commissioners or presidents are sitting there, no matter what they get from ESPN or whoever ends up having these games, how much of this are we going to have to carve out to the players? Because I think that's going to be part of it. If the schools don't do it, the playoff will. They'll collectively bargain with the players in exchange for this. You will play in all these postseason games that another person felt over the weekend. Absolutely, there's going to be opt-outs in the playoffs. I've already written that too. And they're going to demand things. If you collectively bargain that participation, then, for example, Bryce Young doesn't sit out. Because I've already said this, what's in it for Bryce Young if you're his handlers, if you're his parents, and this is theoretical, obviously, to play in 4 more football games when you can weigh a rookie salary and get to your second salary, which is where the big money is, versus a broken ankle. Because that's going to happen. There are going to be guys sitting out.
Dennis, could you see a scenario where Brett Yormark, for the benefit of the Big 12, just kind of politically and where they sit right now, says, let's bring on the Pac-2, let's give them that home that they're looking for. That settles that, and now Kirk Schultz will give everybody his vote, and we can all move forward. Do you see any part of the Big 12 where they'd be keen to do that? Or
no?
Okay.
But look, never say never. But
sure, right.
In all this, but there's no value there. I mean, there's a reason why they've been cut out of the herd. They don't bring value to another conference. They are more a Mountain West type school. There's a reason why they weren't the only two brought along to the Big 12 or Big 10. You can see the markets they play in. There's no brand value recognition to speak of. All that being said is I think they're owed something. I mean, and that's what they're holding out for. You owe us something for being eliminated from the herd. We've done nothing wrong except, compete at a high level, pay our bills. Look where Oregon State had come from in football to win 10 games last year, or in 2022, I believe, in Washington State. So I think they deserve something, but I don't know, short of this vote that they're holding over everybody's heads to try to get more money, to get as close to that $33 million, which I think is their distribution in the final year of the Pac-12 this year, to get as close to that standard of living as possible. Because if not, then they're talking about huge budget cuts and not even mentioning what all these schools are going to have to participate in if there's one of these negative judgments and one of these monster antitrust suits. And as I wrote, about 10 days ago, now we can see the finish line. Mm-hmm. The House lawsuit is going to be heard next January. We've got Dartmouth players that are going to be unionizing. There may be other schools doing that. There's about 5 major lawsuits, all of them that exposes the NCAA and whatever the Power 5 is to judgment.
Dennis, do you think that all of us in the college football media, like maybe 2 more years, we could sit down for a bar exam and some of us might pass it?
I wouldn't. But I would. I've thought about that. Like if I was speaking to a college class that wanted to get into sports writing, I would say absolutely take law classes, get a business minor. Because to cover all this stuff, you just have to re-educate yourself. When all this stuff started to bubble up years ago, I didn't have the knowledge. I had to call people and read and get used to it. But yeah, I would definitely have at least in the term. You're absolutely right.
You look at everything that's happened in the last. Dennis Dodd, CBS Sports, with us. The last 3 or 4 years, from the transfer portal to the NIL to the extra year, where we now see a player at Miami in his 9th year, whatever it might be. I saw the Michigan quarterback getting a 7th year. The college football playoff. All of this that seemed like it tried to fit in one barrel at one time. Is this just like the implosion of what so much at one time was trying to be done?
Yeah, I think eventually it was going to happen because the liability to something you first have to answer or address if you're going to have a breakaway. The NCAA, not many people know this, the NCAA spends $65 million a year on FBS football in a sport where they don't sponsor a championship, right? You know, the CFP is an LLC. I've already written a story that on average, 10 million out of that 65 million is paying off legal liability in some of these cases, head trauma, what have you. And so the NCAA foots that bill. If those two leagues are going to break away, there is some sort of breakaway. Somebody has to hold on to that liability. That's why I think it stays together. I don't think Greg Sankey in his heart of hearts wants to do it. He might be forced to have to do it. But somebody's going to have to take that on unless and until you collectively bargain. That's why people go crazy over that. It doesn't even have to be money. You know, if you give us 2 years, you know, which a lot of coaches would kill for right now. Stay on campus for 2 years. We will provide you with, I don't know, let's just say lifetime medical. You don't have to pay for a knee replacement when you're 50. In exchange for that, you have to say you're not gonna sue us for that stuff as a body. And that's we're seeing this in the very small beginnings at Dartmouth. So if they get that thing done, they're going to be able to negotiate practice time, conditions when they travel, when they leave, how much they're going to be paid. And that's why all this is coming. I think within a year we're going to have some resolution on what I'm talking about, the collective bargaining.
It's a carousel, both college, the players, now the coaches. Baylor lost an offensive line coach today. Arizona has a new AD. Have you heard much about Desiree Reed-Francois at Missouri?
Yeah, know her well. Definitely a step down. She's leaving an SEC job for a Big 12 job at Arizona, where they're absolutely upside down financially, maybe as much as 9 figures, because of, I don't know, mismanagement of money on both the university and athletic side. They were hit by COVID, whatnot. She has her law degree from Arizona, but I would dare say she's probably taking a pay cut. So something went sideways at Missouri. She's very well respected, one of only 4 or 5 women in major college athletics who's an AD, but it's not her going to Ohio State. It's going to Arizona, which just transitioned from the Pac-12 to the Big 12, and in a lot of people's eyes, that's not a step up.
Dennis, great stuff as always. It'll be an interesting week. Tomorrow, the presidents. Wednesday, the commissioners, and who knows if anything is about to get done. Dennis Dodd, CBS Sports, a great follow as well on his Twitter feed with us when there are so many things going on. It's just a melting pot of everything that don't seem to have they don't seem to have like an end in sight, or like these are the specific rules you have to follow. Like I look at a speed limit sign and I think, okay, that's a suggested speed limit. I know that means you can't do 75 and above. You could get a ticket, or even worse. So great 20 minutes or so with Dennis Dodd from